now we've got them all sticking through, and you can actually see that red some going through. So I'm just cleaning up a little bit. So if you've got soft hands, I'd probably recommend you use a set of pliers here, but effectively I'm just pulling the aluminium off. Now you can see even on the bench here all that aluminium, and again probably the reason why it is a good idea to close them. Now I'm just, while I'm here, I'm going to remove, so I'll just fix up these ones. I'm not sure how they could have occurred other than maybe by Toyota when they've done a service on this vehicle. They did have to take that intercooler off at one stage, which unfortunately is one of the downsides with a lot of service centres. They're just not skilled. Alright, now we've got these washers here. They sit under there. Now obviously where the red stuff's come through a little bit too far, we might need to just trim it, and that's okay. It's not a difficult job. So just do that and that, and away we go. So voila. Now once that's gone, you put that washer over it, and then you put the steel plate one, and then we've got a nylock lock nut that goes over it. Okay, so it comes to tightening it up. I use this, and then I just put the drive on there, and away I go. Now the way I gauge how far I should be tightening it is based on that rubber underneath. So that rubber sits between it and that plastic mounting, and if it starts to bulge out or squish, it's too far. So I'm just waiting for it to seal, and there's no gap between it and the other side, and then that's set. We'll do the same thing here. So I've got this one here, and that one there. So we need another washer, and we need another nut. So there we go. Slightly rotate it once again so I can get access, and now we put that back under there again. See, and all I'm doing is just turn it, hold on to it, and just go. That's it. So nice and easy, don't overdo it. That's good enough. All right, yeah, welcome back. I mean, I think it'd get pretty boring if I just showed you, me tightening every single nut. So anyway, they're done. As you can see, they have around about probably about 2.5 mil clearance under here. So there should be no actual rubbing off the unit itself, and that's on both. Up against the intercooler, all of the screws are sitting in there on the rubber, and then on the back side, as you can see, we've done that. Now the only difference we've done with their kit at this point, or thus far, is as I said before, that we've used this red hose or piping. It's a high pressure airline, which I actually use for running my diff breathers through. Okay, so let's go and have a look at this power outlet. For those of you who weren't aware of it, Toyota has these in both the 70 series and had them there for quite a while, and also now in the 200. So, which means that accessory wiring is considerably easier, more manageable, because you've already got the setup for it there. So this 20 amp fuse there, that's your direct battery, so that's your battery there, and then you've got your ignition source here, and an accessory one there. Now the two that we are interested in is the battery, and we'll share it with the one that I've already got in there, and then we'll also fit into the ignition there. So once the ignition turns on, it'll drive that fan. So before you do any work like that, just always remember, remove your fuses, just to be sure. Otherwise you could potentially short circuit something. So we'll take both of those out, and then we'll put them in there so we can replace them later. So now that we have got the source, or the location where we will get our power source from, and it can be fed in through the base, and it's actually quite simple to pull that out. You can also open up these side parts here, and then it'll make it even more accessible to get the wiring through. Obviously, when that's open, just be careful. Okay, so we stopped on this last night, predominantly because we ran out of daylight, and obviously to film it, I've got lights here, but to film it and for you to be able to see it, I need light. So we ended up putting the intercooler back in. There's a couple of things to look out for, obviously, and that is to just make sure that you do put the gaskets in correctly, and also when you tighten them down, that you don't over tighten, but at the same time make sure that you tighten it sufficiently. I'm sure if you ask Tata, there's probably torque settings even for this, or if you're comfortable enough with it, you can probably do it by feel. Now, they're done. So as we refitted them last night, I'm now looking at fitting the power supply to this power outlet box here. How I'm going to run the wiring now. If I can, I'd like to bring the wires to the firewall and then follow my fuel line here, bring it to this box. That's the ideal, and that's also part of the reason why the shroud's not on there, or that plastic cover that goes around, is because I want to do all this first and then use the cover to not only tuck the wire in underneath, but also to make sure that there's no way for the wire to get picked up by anything or pulled on or anything like that. So that's the aim of today. So we'll get the gear ready and we'll get into it. Okay, so let's go and have a look at this power outlet. For those of you who weren't aware of it, Toyota has these in both the 70 series, and had them there for quite a while, and also now in the 200. So, which means that accessory wiring is considerably easier, more manageable, because you've already got the setup for it there. So this 20 amp fuse there, that's your direct battery, so that's your battery there, and then you've got your ignition source here, and an accessory one there. Now the two that we are interested in is the battery, and we'll share it with the one that I've already got in there, and then we'll also fit into the ignition there. So once the ignition turns on, it'll drive that fan. So before you do any work like that, just always remember, remove your fuses, just to be sure. Otherwise you could potentially short circuit something. So we'll take both of those out, and then we'll put them in there so we can replace them later. So now that we have got the source, or the location where we will get our power source from, and it can be fed in through the base, and it's actually quite simple to pull that out. You can also open up these side parts here, and then it'll make it even more accessible to get the wiring through. Obviously, when that's open, just be careful. You don't touch anything here, potentially shorten something out. But yeah, so that's our first job now. Right, so now I've got the the harness, and I've also got the wiring diagram. It gives you 3 options. So the first option is just do a thermo fan. Then there's a condenser or a condenser thermo, and then a condenser fan. Basically, if you look at inside there, it explains that a thermo fan can be mounted either side of the radiator or condenser. It's been sold to you to be placed in front of the radiator or condenser. It will push the air through the radiator or condenser. And that's pretty well what we wish to do. So what we've got to then look at is obviously the wiring diagram or the layout. So coming off the relay, we have a blue lead. That's your ignition lead. So that needs to go into that ignition box. The red's obviously your battery, power supply. The black's your earth, and that also has the earth. That fan motor's out. And your green is the supply to the fan motor itself. If you're unsure, it's basically giving you a series of numbers. These numbers on the front of your relay, and for those who are not aware, they've also got the numbers on the base of the relay. So what you could look at, for example, is say 87, and you look at there's 2 lots of 87. You look at the configuration and go, okay, the 187, which is the middle one, is not being used. The top one is being used, and then you can follow it and says 87 says go to motor. So basically that's it. It's a fairly straightforward process. Okay, so anyway, what I was saying is what you need to do is just splay them apart, push them together, and then wind them, and you wind one clock and the other one, other bundle anti-clock, and ties it together nicely. Now what you do is the same thing, you heat it up, and once you've heated it up, that's actually something a lot of people, you see them making that mistake. They try and force the solder onto cold wire by heating the solder on the iron. It's the wrong way around. You're actually meant to get the wire hot and then feed the solder into it. So you'll see that eventually when this wire gets hot, and it's quite a thick wire, and obviously the thicker it is, it'll take longer to do. But what you'll find is it'll end up, there you go. See, what happens now is because the wire is hot, you can feed the solder very comfortably into the wiring. There you go. Now we do the same thing with the positive. So that was the earth. This one here is the power supply. So that's the extra power supply that goes to the fan. Same thing. Just wait for that to heat up. And obviously, if you put heat shrink anywhere there, just bring it back far enough so it doesn't get impacted by the iron heating up the wiring, because the wiring does get obviously very warm in order for it to melt the solder into it. So yeah, the problem with metal is if you were to put that on a metal surface, then obviously it'll draw the heat out. See, there it goes. Now you can see it start going into it. And all those little fibres now are just pushing together, see? Just melt straight into the wiring now. Beautiful. Okay, so I've got a bit of conduit here. Now that conduit has to bridge from there to there and into here. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do it. So the first thing we will do is we'll lay it out and just always, hold on to wire itself and just make sure. So that's about the size, so we cut it off at that point. Okay, now there's a couple of things to do first, and it's a bit of a trick that unfortunately a lot of people don't know. I'll show you how that works. So we'll put it into there first. So if you bend the conduit back like so, and it actually will make it very easy to just feed all of those wires straight into it without any difficulty whatsoever. So once the wiring is in there like that, okay, so that's in there now. All right, so we're actually going rubber grommet to rubber grommet. Now, what you can see is that's going to protect that now from impact. Now, the next part is that we need to run the full length of it across the back. So the thing that a lot of people make a mistake is where you join the two together, it's very easy for it to slide around and also have a gap where you can get a lot of dirt and mud and everything in. I mean, conduit is not ideal for keeping dirt out, but if you just put a bit of tape around like so, and then run the tape up a little bit, so when you now put the conduit over the top, there's a bit of room. Okay, and once you've got that bit of conduit there, what actually happens is if you roll the tape back, because you've taped the wires underneath, and then run it back around that joint, and then back up and over, what actually happens is you've effectively now made that a solid joint, and there's no way that can pull apart from either side. Because the wiring is actually taped initially, then it's fed, the tape's fed through the gap, and then goes around the conduit. It Okay, so now before I can finish the wiring, I need to cut out this grille that we prepared yesterday, and the reason for that is that I need to be able to fit it to then make a determination whether I run with the conduit above it or whether I run with the conduit above it, below it. If I run below it, it's going to be sandwiched between this and the intercooler, and the intercooler does get quite hot, and there's also a lip on the intercooler which could potentially rub through. So reality is it might be better to go over the top. As the rubber sits down, it molds around it. So, but we'll have a look. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out this mesh, and I kind of decided that this might be the easiest way to do it. The simple fact that it's very clean and it's right up on the edge, so there's no bits sticking out anywhere. So then so we've now taken it out, and as you can see, it's come out fairly clean. Like there's no some major parts sticking up anywhere, so we should have, and certainly nothing sharp. So now we're just going to cut out these edges here, and for that we will need jigsaw. So with the jigsaw, we'll now cut out these curves first, and once these curves are done, then we'll worry about these square ends there. So. So there are curves. Now we can pull that tape off. There we go. Rubbish. There we go. Now we just clean up those edges a little bit. There you go. And now we've got those curves. Now we're just going to cut these square sections out. And again, they're pretty straightforward. Now, in order to get that out, I can slot cut it. I can sort of bring the saw along there to cut it. But I can also, on the back side here, do this. The reason I prefer to do this is because I can now follow the foam line and see exactly where that metallic body has to press the foam seal on that edge, so that edge there, and I can use that, cut that out, and I'll get a really nice clean cut along that line. There you go, nice and clean. And now we can take that tape off as well. And there you go, we've got that perfect cut. Repeat 3 more times. All right. So with that now completed, we've got the 4 cutouts and we've got the 2 curves on the edges. We'll give it a light sand and a clean up, but before we do that, we'll just do a quick test fit to see how it fits. Okay, so yeah, this fits really well. I've just gone along with the file and a bit of sandpaper and just cleaned it all up. So we've got it the right way around. We'll loop through and drop it in. So there you go, it fits really well. Now, the decision I've got to make is there's a few different things. I can run the wire to the back over the top of this, or I can run the wire to the front, secure it down here and there, and then run it down, and it'll just sit there like that and seal. Excuse me. So there are a couple of pros and cons. I'm a bit reluctant to have the wire going out the back. The reason being is it'll open a gap, and a lot of rainwater that's getting forced through there will force its way out. I do have my diff breathers back there, which could present a bit of an issue. So given those circumstances, I'm probably more inclined to run it out front. That leaves me with another minor issue. If if I secure this like that, that's fine. Then I have to bridge it from here to this harness there and secure it, and that's fine. So as it comes down, it'll seal on here. A bit of water comes down the front, doesn't matter. There's nothing there that can impact greatly, whereas down the back there's some other issues. The only sort of concern is that obviously it's another obstruction here that'll stop airflow through, but perhaps unfortunately it's going to have to be there. So what we'll do is we'll just trial it and see what happens. If we find that it's just not working, then we can always change it. One of the other options would be to run it parallel, have it coming out the side, and that's not my fault as well. But I'd prefer to get it to a harness at the front or rear as soon as practically possible, and then follow it. There's less chance of damage. As far as securing it to here, I'm going to use some zip ties. Now, don't use budget zip ties for this sort of stuff. Use zip ties that are UV stabilized, because there is a lot of heat you're dealing with there, and it's going to have impact from weather. So it's probably one of those things where, you know, if you scrimp on dollars here by buying some budget ones, they'll probably likely snap, and they'll end up inside the fan and potentially doing damage to your intercooler. So just keep that in mind. And look, given it's a zip tie, so it'll last for a while, but just it's probably part of something that you'd want to make as part of your service routine, where you just keep checking the condition of zip ties every time you open the bonnet and have a look around at things, make sure everything's good. Okay, so I've zip tied these on there now, and then trimmed them back so there's nothing sticking out. Now, just be mindful. Obviously, if you turn these so they're face down, you have the potential risk of hitting those blades. So hence why I left them sticking up. But just be aware that nothing hits these blades, and give them a bit of a spin, and generally you get a fairly good idea if anything is going to strike. So now, to go from here to the harness, now there's obviously going to be movement between this and this, especially if that's rod mount. It's minimal, but just don't make this too tight. So we made this bracket to sit behind the fuel filter there, the secondary fuel filter. It'll get riveted to it, but for obvious reason, the relay won't. It just screws through so that we can actually take it off when we need to. So there's a nylock nut on there. And I've folded the base over. Now, the reason there's one there, we're also going to rivet the earth to that. So it's earth through it as well as everything else. So that part's earth. Right. So just to show you, that's where the relay sits now. That's the bracket I made. And then the wiring will run under here. And as you can see up there, and then away. So on the backside, what I was saying is this is where I've got that hanging down, so it actually protects it as well. But there's nothing there going to impact on that. So that's where that is. Okay, so just to wrap it all up, the fans are now in. As you can see, the wiring is joint in the middle there, and then runs through the conduit along there. The reason, as I was saying earlier, put it here, is that when that shuts, this seal will go over it. I've done it out the back. The concern is that it would get to those breathers and put water in them. So now that that's all done, I guess the next part is let's have a look at the relays. So now you can do a common earth, and I did a common earth. So both of these run on one earth. That saves you a wire. And then I ran 2 lots of the harness through to here, and we've put the relays down here. So those relays are both powered by this power supply here, and they just fit onto the little brackets I've made up down there. And effectively, that's it. So what we'll do is we'll start her up, and we'll see how it all works, and then we'll go from there. So the first thing you'll notice is there's quite a substantial amount of noise. These fans make, so you do know they're there. And when you close the bonnet, you can very much hear them. So if anybody has one of these fitted, it's definitely noticeable. It's not something that you can avoid. Okay, with the installation finally done, I suppose the question is, firstly, how difficult is it? Look, it's not. There are some risks, and the risks are that you could damage your intercooler. If you are not mechanically minded or don't have a reasonable mechanical aptitude and you remove it, you might damage the parts with the intercooler itself. So potentially crush some of the baffles. Alternatively, put a gasket on the wrong way around. Things like that. But by and large, if you have a reasonable mechanical aptitude, this side of it is not an issue. I did make a modification where I coated those bolts that go through the intercooler in a heavy plastic. Just used some breather hose, so that red breather hose actually in the back of the engine bay, the same stuff. It's perfect size, fitted over the screw, and it just stops that abrasive rubbing. It is the screw is threaded the entire length, as I shown earlier, and that can certainly cause some damage. So other than that, look, everything else is straightforward. It's a pretty basic kit to fit, so it's not difficult. Now, where I could see some people running into trouble is with the electrics. There's a little bit involved. So ordinarily you run 2 harnesses around back to here, which is fine. You can use a common earth if you wish, which is what I've done. But ultimately, you're actually running 2 harnesses, the full length back. You have to put the relay somewhere, and then you can use your power outlet here to obtain power, or if you wish, get power from the battery direct and then get the power from here, or the ignition pickup from here. So look, that's probably a little bit more difficult side if you're not sure of what you're doing, if you're uncomfortable with that sort of stuff. Just be aware that there is a bit of work involved, in particular in regards to how to fit the relays. You probably have to make up some brackets or find somewhere to mount them. Now ordinarily you can probably mount them along there. I can't do that because of the struts, as mentioned earlier. They do fold into there, but that's for another video. So all in all, is it worth it? I don't know, and I can't tell you that until I've driven this for a while. The temperatures are lower. I've done a test drive, and the intake temperatures are considerably lower. It is noticeable, and I do know that I could touch this outlet side here on both, which ordinarily, especially standing or slow travelling, I would not have been able to, because it's about the same temperature as there. And that's really where this will help. It's slow travelling, because on slow speed, the fans will do the work and just keep pushing air through. Now, as far as the fans themselves are concerned, look, there's a bit of a risk with these fans. If something was to come through, the inlet here on the bonnet, it could potentially do some damage, especially with those fans forcing it into the intercooler rather rapidly. And that's something that I've got to look at, and I may end up putting a guard on the inside, like a mesh on the inside. But look, at the moment it's fine. And over time I'll give you guys an update and tell you how it's working and whether it is actually worth your money, and whether it's making that sort of difference that it's worth doing, because you do inhibit a lot of natural airflow. And that's another good point probably to just mention. If you travel remote with this sort of configuration, keep in mind that if your wiring, fusing or relays fail, then you're going to have two very large obstructive items sitting on the intercooler, reducing the airflow. So I would strongly urge that you do take a relay with you, a spare, and you should always be taking fuses anyway, but make sure you have fuses appropriate for that. But yeah, well, that's it, and we'll let you know. Time-wise. Look, the supplier said about 3 hours. Yeah, look, comfortably in 3 hours. Don't rush it. This is, like I said, the intercooler is one of those things you don't want to make a mistake on. You damage them, and it's a costly exercise. But other than that, look, yeah, by all means, give it a go. Thank you.